Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Monday Memo. Now, I talk a lot about finance professionals coming out of our caves. The reason why I say things like that is our traditional reporting and analysis just doesn't really cut it anymore. So we need to maybe come out of where we're comfortable and examine new areas. And that could give us a bit of a headache. And the reason why I use the word headache is recently I was preparing for a webinar presentation and I decided to go through a number of emails in the inbox, and it seemed as fast as I was going through the emails, more kept arriving, and it was just a sort of lot of pressure. I had a marathon session getting through them, and then as I got up from my desk, I just had the most amazing pain behind my eyes, and it was probably the most piercing one I've ever had, and I was actually very much disorientated. And I think that's sort of what happens when you have a headache. Now, on the positive side, whilst it was very uncomfortable, at least I wasn't having that headache many thousands of years ago when I suppose we were in prehistoric times, because the solution for such headaches was having a fellow prehistoric human or woman come along with a sharp object, say the edge of a rock, and do something called trepanning, which was proceeding to strike that object to where the pain was to try and relieve the pain, the pressure. And I suppose by some standards, like some of our finance approaches, it had some success. You could probably say that you got rid of the headache, but on the other hand, you could have probably had a profuse bleeding or dizziness, and in some instances death. But I suppose, hey, at least there was no headache anymore, right? And in our finance teams today, when I look around at how hard we're working, how fast we're trying to adopt new technologies, dealing with increasingly expectant customers, business partners, stakeholders, being told to learn these softer skills, it's probably quite interesting because a lot of us might actually feel there's an awful lot of opportunity. But then on the other hand, what I find quite puzzling is there's a lot of people feeling less engaged in their work. I feel like they're losing influence, becoming irrelevant, finding it a challenge perhaps to keep up. And I suppose is it any wonder then that organizations, most of them, is it 99% of them, I think, want to become more insights driven, leverage that history we have in reporting and analysis, but only apparently 1 in 3 are succeeding. And that presents a headache for finance leaders and finance professionals as we try and figure a path through this digital disruption. Also, all the different cultures that are now in our workplaces being more global, the different generations, as I said, the demanding customer expectations. There's an awful lot of stressors being placed upon us. And like at a chemical or a neurological level anyway, that increases what's known as our allostatic load. And it means that our decisions probably go a bit old fashioned, a bit what we call leveraging the chimp brain or the old brain, and not making use of the sort of neocortex, the sort of rational thinking brain, which might actually help us plot a path through this. And, that chimp name is very aptly named because it does go all the way back to our trepanning ancestors, back into caveman times, where it's solely concerned with our survival. But the problem is, if we're just solely concerned with survival, and we're sort of those brains have taken over the decision making per se, then we're probably not controlling as much influence as we should and thinking our way through the challenges. And then is any wonder why such a headache persists? Because a lot of finance professionals now are responding by either becoming not engaged, the sort of flight mode from this sort of survival mentality, or just not generally satisfied or emotionally engaged or connected to their work or workplace, and they'll show up, just do the bare minimum and quickly leave their company if there was a slightly better offer on the table, or even worse, actively disengaged, which means they're being disruptive to their fellow colleagues, customers, or potentially even sabotaging organizational performance. And this shows up in the numbers too. In a recent Gallup survey, I know it was US focused, it said that 53% of employees are actually in the not engaged category at work. and 13% are actively disengaged. That's sort of sabotaging type category, and the challenge here is we're attempting to solve these problems in survival mode, applying our chimp brains, as I keep saying, and not the logical thinking parts. And we're probably a bit guilty as well of sometimes just trying to grasp for the latest shiny object, the latest RPA, robotic process automation, blockchain, latest visualization tools, when there's a lot of solutions already in our touching distance that we can actually do for ourselves if we just step back and thought our way through this. So look, I'm going to talk a bit more about coming out from our caves on an upcoming webinar with AICPA and SEMA, and also at their Finance Transformation Conference. So if you're curious to learn more about what it means to come out from our caves and the practical solutions, perhaps these challenges, if let's say you feel like you've got a big headache in this space and want to learn more how to do it, or even you're actually performing quite well and want to make sure that you're maintaining and sustaining or even trying to move on a bit from your current levels, please check out the link with this podcast. And like everything we try and do on the Strength in the Numbers show, it's all about trying to deconstruct what's working, what's not working, use our logical neocortex, our thinking minds, modern brains, to go break these down into steps that everyone else can follow to ease some of the trials and tribulations, that comes with trial and error. So really appreciate you investing your time with us today. And until next time, take care of yourselves and let's keep on building our strength in the numbers.